Van Cortlandt Park, home to an abundance of trees, wildlife, and flocks of runners. Fordham Track and Field Team is one of the many teams who practice at Van Cortlandt regularly. However, for grad school students Brian Cook and his two junior teammates Nick Rafsky and Patrick Donahue, an average run in the park turned into a hero's journey.
Me, Nick, and Pat Donahue were running in the back hills, doing a normal training run, and we were about halfway through the back hills when we saw another runner and an elderly man on the ground.
The elderly man was soaked from head to toe, lying in the snow, unable to make out words which the young man could identify. With no hesitation, the Fordham men sprung into action, looking for any help they could find.
Assist the man trying to pick up the older man, but he wasn't really going anywhere. So then we ran to go find help, like someone walking a dog or another runner with a phone, because none of us had a phone on us.
We ran out of the woods, and luckily there was an ambulance right out of the back hills near the park bathroom. So I ran up to the ambulance and signaled to the driver to roll down his window. He did that, and I started explaining the scenario. When we got out there, when we got back to the scene with the EMS personnel, we made sure to stand back and give them as much room as they needed, but we were also willing to help in any way possible.
The Fordham trio helped the EMS members load the man onto a sled. They then proceeded to carry the man through hills of snow and ice for a half mile to get the man to the ambulance where he received the proper care.
I think that anyone that was put in that scenario would have done what we did, and I'm just glad that we were there.
The Fordham men's accomplishments made the news, surprising the teammates who only thought they were doing the right thing. Such an overwhelming experience would certainly shake up most, but for these Fordham runners, it was but a moment of the regular training day.
Running for 10 miles that morning, and we found him about halfway through. Once the older gentleman was in the ambulance and they drove off to the hospital, we just finished our run. We didn't really think of much of it at all after the fact. Like during it, we were just thinking about trying to help the EMTs out and get this guy out of the conditions. But after, we didn't really think much of it. We talked amongst ourselves about it, but when we got back to campus, we didn't really tell that many people, except for our friends and our family.
Whether they choose to believe it or not, the actions these Fordham athletes took in a man's moment of peril have etched them the title of hero.